Have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot! Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant turning, has to put it up for the buzzer. He banks it!
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. We are here on the regularly scheduled Wednesday morning. This is when my podcast is going to be released going forward. I know I was kind of inconsistent. I hate to use that word, but let's be real here. I was kind of inconsistent with my show times and my availability. Got a new position at work. I think I went over this on Sunday on the show. But we're definitely changing up the formatting, the scheduling as far as when Scotty Talks NBA is actually going to air. With the NFL season concluding, obviously, you know, I co-host Turf Talk also on DSM Media here. With that concluding, I'm going to start doing Scotty Talks NBA 2 times a week. There's a lot of NBA action going on. We're getting into the thick of the season, and we're getting very close to the NBA playoffs, which I'm going to need a bunch of time to cover, if I'm going to be covering the entire NBA and not just focusing singly on the Sixers, which is definitely a goal of mine going forward. I know this is a Philly-based media network. It's a Philly-based show, but at the same time, this is Scotty Talks NBA. So we are going to shift the focus on this show to a more broad NBA focus. Sorry for hitting the mic there if that made a noise, but we're shifting to a more broader view of the NBA. I'm going to shift the focus, talk a lot more about what's going on around the rest of the NBA outside of Philly, because as I mentioned on Sunday, me and my co-host from Turf Talk, Dylan Davis, we're going to start a new Sixers show that focuses directly on the Philadelphia 76ers. So we're not going to spend a bunch of time doing that on this show. Don't want to, double the content up doing the same thing. So that will be the goal. Once you see that Sixers show dropping, we will be gravitating towards more of a broad NBA focus. But until then, we will still keep the Sixers talk as part of the show. But that should be in the coming weeks as we lead into the playoffs. You'll see that Sixers show kick off. As far as today, I know I just said a lot there, so bear with me here. We're doing a lot of house cleaning at the beginning of this episode, obviously. So going forward, just for clarity, Sundays around 10, 11 a.m. in the morning, episode will be released, or I'll go live, whatever fits my schedule better that week. But most of the time I will be going live Sunday mornings. So I'll get to talk to you all. As far as Wednesdays, those will be usually on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. So 10 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. And those will usually be the recorded podcasts. Just because I am available in the evenings now, but the time slots don't really fit with where I want my show to be viewed. So recording on Tuesday nights, releasing Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. And hopefully we'll see how the schedule works out during the first round of it. I'm going to be trying it over the next few weeks. If it fits the plethora of the NBA schedule, right? Like the NBA schedule varies throughout the week. So I'm going to see how it kind of plays out leading up to the playoffs and then see if we need to adjust once the playoffs get here. But yes, just bear with me. If you love the content, I definitely appreciate you. I love you tuning into the show. So definitely, let me know your thoughts on the new scheduling. If you would prefer different days, I can try to work to the audience to make sure you're able to view the show live if you want to interact. But yes, things are always flowing. Things are always fluid here at DSM Media. We're always adjusting, and we will make sure that we get the content out to you no matter what. But Sunday mornings, 10 a.m., Wednesday mornings, 10 a.m. That's when you can expect the Scotty Talks NBA episodes bi-weekly. So should be fun 2 times a week. And let's get into today's show, right? So another formatting thing. Anytime you see me here by myself, if I don't have a guest, whether it's due to time constraints, due to availability, just due to me not being able to get a guest, whatever the case may be, always going to bring the content to you here. But formatting wise, we are going to try to keep these solo shows to around a half an hour, 45 minutes. Just because it's a lot of me talking. Like I don't want to overbear, over bombard your audio and your podcasting service. So if I don't have a guest, we don't really need an hour of me talking to myself. So I'll try to keep these to more of a 35, 40-minute type of episode whenever I'm solo. Whenever I have co-hosts, guests, interviews, we'll push those closer to that 45 to an hour limit just to, get you the content that you deserve and get it to you precisely. For today's episode, it is a solo show, so I'm going to try to keep it to the 30, 35-minute time frame there. And what we're going to get into. So, obviously, Ja Morant last night was ridiculous. 52 points in that matchup against the Spurs on Monday night. So we're going to talk a lot about Ja Morant and his MVP case because he's moving into that top three. I know last week on Scotty Talks NBA, I mentioned my top 5 MVP candidates. I said the top 3 being Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid were on like a different plane than DeRozan and Morant. Morant has entered the conversation with those top 3 now. So we're going to go over that. I want to talk about how good the Celtics are. I know I talked about it briefly last week as one of the things I'm going to be keeping my eye on. But I definitely want to just take a good look at the Celtics, give you my perspective on how they could fare out down the stretch of this NBA season. How long can the Nets stay afloat? It's something we've been talking about for the last couple weeks. We're going to get into that a little bit more, just kind of their recent play and how it looks going forward. Clearing up narratives from the national media. This has been very fucking annoying since the Harden trade. Now we got Jason McIntyre, whoever the fuck that is, from Fox Sports Radio, coming out, some spitting fire show. Well, I don't even know what the fuck it's called. But says that Harden and Embiid are not only not a top 5 duo in the NBA, he says they're not a top 5 duo in the Eastern Conference. I'm going to go through all 30 of the top duos on each team. So 30 teams, we're going to have 30 duos. I'm going to go through each of those and let you know all of the duos that Harden and Embiid are certainly better than. So we'll get into that. I'll give you my top 5 duos in the NBA. Michelle Beadle, the story on Harden today played out, dude. You're talking about he's quit on all these. Dude, he quit on the Brooklyn Nets. Sure. If you want to go that route with that narrative, fine. That's fair. Houston, come on. We're going to talk about that. The criticism of James Harden and the quitter mentality, and he is who he is. The shit is corny. We're going to talk about it. And then we'll just get into briefly Sixers versus Knicks preview. We got the Sixers hosting the Knicks tomorrow night, Wednesday night. So it'll be tonight when you're seeing this. So we'll definitely preview that before we get out of here as well. So let's dive into it. Before we do so, make sure if you're not already following me at Scotty Drown. I'm your host here on Scotty Talks NBA. Find me at Scotty Drown on every single social media network that you like. And I'm bringing content to you every day. So make sure you give me a follow. Also, make sure you're following DSM Media at DSM_media on Twitter, at DSM Media on TikTok, just spelled straight out, at DSM.DoSomethingMajor on Instagram. Make sure you're following us on those 3 sites specifically because that's where the most of our content is coming out right now. Also, Facebook, make sure you search us up on Facebook, DSM Media. And then, of course, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button on YouTube. It's been the hardest thing in the world to grow. I won't lie to you. The YouTube audience is hard to gather. But we are trying. We are getting better. We are picking up the pace. And we finally hit that 500 subscriber mark. Road to 600. Road to 1,000. Join us. Help us out here. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, liking the videos, commenting, sharing your opinions, engaging. That's the focus here at DSM Media. Let's get into it. Ja Morant. Get to know the name. I'm going to talk about Colin Cowherd as well. I didn't mention that in the overview there, but we're going to talk about that dude, Colin Cowherd, whatever the fuck his name is. He's a weirdo. We're going to talk about what he said about Ja. But first, I want to talk about Ja's game on Monday night against San Antonio, which in my eyes propelled him into the same vicinity as Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid on that MVP totem pole. Is he at the top of my list? I can't say that just yet. But 52 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 22 for 30 from the field, 4 for 4 from the three-point line on Monday night against the Spurs, and a W. Let's take a look at his overall resume, though. So we got on the season, Ja Morant, 27.6 points per game, 6.6 assists per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, 1.2 steals per game, 49.8% field goal percentage, 34.4% three-point percentage. The Grizzlies are currently they're 43-20. That's third in the Western Conference. Not only third in the Western Conference, that's third in the NBA. 43-20. So this is the third winningest team in the NBA. Imagine that. This young-ass Grizzlies team is at the top of the NBA. Have to give some credit to Ja for that. Let's look at Ja in the month of February. 33 points per game, 5.9 assists per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 52.4% from the field, 30% from the three-point line. The Grizzlies were 7-3 in the month of February. This guy has to be in the conversation. He has to be at the top of the conversation. I know, some people are giving him a bunch of heat. I mentioned Colin Cowherd earlier. He's quote unquote very skeptical for long-term championship odds for springy athletic guards that drive and score. His reference, his comps to Ja Morant for this take were Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, and John Wall, which are interesting comps nonetheless. I get it. Athletic, springy. He said that. I get why you're comparing them. Ja, I think he has a different motor. Now, obviously, Derrick Rose was a different animal before those catastrophic knee injuries. John Wall was a different animal before those catastrophic knee injuries. I get what Colin is saying. Athletic, springy. He referenced Chris Paul, Steph Curry as like the go-to guys there. They're great at facilitating. They got an outside shot. Not everything is so inside dominant. Ja Morant, I think, is second in the league in paint scoring behind Nikola Jokic, was one of the points he referenced. But I think my point with Ja in this situation, and kind of just, devil's advocate to what Colin is saying, is appreciate what we're witnessing. Why do we have to focus on the negatives with Ja Morant? You talk about him as a facilitator. He's averaging close to 6 assists, man. What are we talking about here? He's actually averaging 6.6 assists per game. He's averaging 5.9 rebounds per game. So it's not like he's just like this, like, driver, like, scorer. He's not De'Aaron Fox. There's a reason Ja is more exciting than a player like De'Aaron Fox, who is also just athletic and springy and fast. Ja Morant's a little different. One, he's propelled his team to winning. There's a leadership and a mentality, a characteristic that goes with that. It's called intangibles. Ja has a lot of those. Leadership, dog mentality. You can call it Mamba mentality. The willingness to get better. And you talk about an outside shot. He's shooting 34.4% from the three. I know it's not great. It's just around league average at 35% mark. And it's going to improve. He's a hard worker. He's got the dog mentality. He wants to be the best. This isn't a Ben Simmons, dog. And, Derrick Rose, I get the comparisons. John Wall, I get the comparisons. But look what it took to slow them down. Not just one knee injury, not one catastrophic knee injury. Multiple. And Russell Westbrook, like the Russell Westbrook disrespect, I get the comp, but Russell Westbrook was a perennial all-star before like the last 2-3 seasons. A perennial MVP candidate in OKC after KD left. So what are we comparing him to? Like, yes, if Ja sticks it out like Russell Westbrook did after KD left, after James Harden's gone, after Serge Ibaka's gone, you have no more weapons. if Ja sticks it out in Memphis, if they pull some stuff like that and trade, Desmond Bane and then trade Jaren Jackson Jr., all the pieces that they build around Ja there, they trade Dylan Brooks. If he waits it out there and suffers by being the only piece there, similar to what Dame is doing, so be it. That is what it is. That's his choice. It doesn't mean that Russell Westbrook was a losing player. He just tried to do it the hard way. He remained loyal. So I don't get why we have to crucify Russell Westbrook for that. He's a 9-time All-NBA player. If Ja Morant ends up as a 9-time All-NBA player and an NBA MVP, I think he's going to be all right. If he keeps his team in playoff contention like he has him right now as a 3rd seed in the NBA, not the West, the 3rd best record in the NBA. If he can do that, I think he's going to be fine. Russell Westbrook is a 9-time NBA All-Star. Ja Morant making the All-Star game this year. You saw it. So it's a good comp, but it's not a good comp for the reasons that Colin Cowherd is getting at here. In fact, Russell Westbrook is more of an outlier to what he's talking about. Just my opinion. Russell Westbrook is an NBA top 75 player. Some may not agree with it. I certainly do, given some of the records that he's broken, the back-to-back triple-double averaging seasons. To classify Russell Westbrook as like, what are you getting at here? Like that he's a loser? You can say that. I get it. People joke about it. He just remained loyal. What's the difference between Westbrook and Dame Lillard? Would you say Dame Lillard has had a bad career? I don't know. And it's funny I bring up Dame Lillard because that's who Ja reminds me of the most. And I know Dame Lillard has like this unlimited range. That's not something that Ja has yet. But Ja has the dog mentality. He comes from a small school. If anything, the comp is Dame Lillard from Weber State. Comes in the league, lights it up immediately out of Weber State University. Get your comps right, Colin. Do your research, man. You're comparing him to Derrick Rose. You're comparing him to John Wall. That's you counting on him getting injured in a catastrophic way. That's negativity. That's negative vibes. And that's what I'm trying to get away from. I'm tired of discrediting these players, man. It's sickening what the national media has done to the way we view players, to the point where we have to degrade one player in order to build another up. We don't have to do that anymore. Appreciate Ja's greatness. Appreciate that he's in the MVP conversation right now. He has the Memphis Grizzlies in contention right now. Appreciate it. That's it. Enjoy it while it lasts. Embiid and Jokic, we don't have to tear them both down to build the other up. They're both great. Appreciate it. LeBron and MJ, we don't have to tear LeBron down to build MJ up. And we don't have to tear MJ down to build LeBron up. They're both great in their eras. You get my point. You get my drift here. Appreciate Ja Morant, what you're seeing from him right now. Appreciate it while it lasts, and that's all you can do. How about an Allen Iverson comp? He talked about how Ja is like this tiny guy. Allen Iverson was one of the most durable players in the fucking league when he was playing. So come on with the comps. Bring them out and bring them correct. Use them in the right context, Colin. Because the Russell Westbrook comp, it was fine. It was fair. But not for the reason that you were comparing them. So that's all I'm saying. Appreciate Ja Morant while you can. And, just to put it in perspective, I told you Ja scored 52 points on Monday night. Saturday night, he had 46. Back-to-back games up over 45-plus points. Talk to me. Where's Ja Morant at on your MVP rankings? I'd love for you to put it in the comments. If you think he's first, it's an argument to be made. He's in the conversation. I guarantee you that. So moving on. Next thing I want to talk about is the Boston Celtics, man. And you see the headline there. Celtics, the favorite to win the NBA championship. Why do I have that up there? Because recently, 538's Raptor projections. I don't know how the fuck they're calculated. Don't ask me. It's not my job to figure it out. It's not my job to calculate it. 538's Raptor projections on who's going to win the Eastern Conference, who's going to win the NBA Finals. And guess who tops those projections? The Boston Celtics are first, according to 538's Raptor projections, brought to you by ESPN. I found this on ESPN. The Celtics have a 30% chance of winning the Eastern Conference. That's the most in the conference. They also give the Celtics an 18% chance to win the NBA Finals, which is first in the NBA. So according to 538's Raptor projections, the Boston Celtics are the favorite to win the NBA title right now. And I know that sounds crazy. What, the Celtics, they're 6th seed right now. They're 5.5 games back, I believe, from they're 5.5 games back from the 1 seed, excuse me. 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. How can they possibly have the best chance of winning the Eastern Conference or even winning the NBA championship? So let's just talk about the Celtics, a little bit of their recent play. I mentioned it last week. They're on fire. I know they gave up 128 to the Pacers over the weekend, which was ridiculous, but nonetheless, they're on fire recently. 17-6 in their last 23 games. They're 36-27 overall. I mentioned the 6th seed, 5.5 games back. They have a defensive efficiency of 101.5 since hitting their low point on January 7th of 2022. They had lost on January 7th, dropping to 18-21. They were in the play-in. I think they were actually out of the play-in. They were in the 11th place. I remember talking about this on the show because it was amazing to me at the time. Nonetheless, they have turned it around. As you can see, they're the best defensive team in the NBA according to the defensive efficiency rating. I think this team is very dangerous. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I fucking hate Boston Celtics. I hate them. So I'm not lying. I'm not being biased. There's none of that in this. Being completely honest with you, I think the Celtics have a very good chance. I know 30% leading the NBA as far as, or leading the Eastern Conference as far as projections to win it. I think that's a little extreme. There's teams I would put over Boston, but I think Boston should be in that conversation. And I think a lot of people are leaving them out. A lot of people I see, Bucks, Heat, Nets, Sixers. We'll talk about the Nets next. Do they belong in that conversation? When they're fully healthy, sure. How many times since KD's gotten to the Nets have they been fully healthy? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But nonetheless, I think this Boston team is extremely dangerous. You talk about top 5 duos, which we'll also talk about in just a little while here. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, do you want to play those guys in the playoffs? Do you want to have to guard those guys? I don't. We have Matisse Thybulle, one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. I don't want to have to figure out how to guard those guys. I don't want to play Boston. You talk about teams that have had success guarding Embiid. Boston's one of those teams. I don't want to play Boston. They got the number 1 defense in the NBA since January 7th. I don't want to play Boston in the playoffs. Do I think the Sixers could beat them in the playoffs? Hell yeah. I think they can beat the Boston Celtics in a 7-game series. But do I want to play them? No. Fuck no. Another little fact that I found on ESPN in an article I read today, Boston has made 3 out of the last 5 Eastern Conference Finals, and it doesn't get talked about. Obviously, not last year. They weren't there. But 3 out of the last 5 conference finals. And the first one was without Jason Tatum. He wasn't on the team. Look at Tatum's stats this year, 25.7 points per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game. Jaylen Brown, 23.7 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 3.3 assists per game. Do you want to go up against those guys? I don't think you do. Very, very interesting squad. And you talk about Robert Williams, great defensive center, very versatile in the way they can use him on defense. Al Horford, another versatile center. I fucking hate Al Horford. Don't get it twisted. Very versatile defender right there. He's going to get dominated by Embiid, but very versatile defender. They're going to create a lot of bad matchups. And then you throw Marcus Smart in there as far as a perimeter defender. Jaylen Brown can play some pretty good perimeter defense. Jason Tatum has improved as a wing defender as well. These guys are locked in. They're moving the ball around on offense. Very dangerous team. Do not sleep on the Boston Celtics. And don't be surprised if they creep up into the top 4 seeds of the East. Don't be surprised if they finish like that. Next thing I wanted to talk about, Brooklyn Nets. I've hinted at them quite a few times today. So how long can the Brooklyn Nets really stay afloat like this? Okay. So let's talk about some of the recent action, recent reports from Brooklyn. So Saturday, we have the 126-123 win over Milwaukee. Everybody's talking about Brooklyn. Look at that fucking win. They got it in Milwaukee against Milwaukee. Bobby Portis hit like 5 threes. Giannis got dunked on by Andre Drummond. Like, the vibes were immaculate in Brooklyn coming out of Saturday. And then by Monday night against Toronto, they were brought back down to earth. Why is that? Oh, that's right. Because Kyrie Irving is not vaccinated. He's not vaccinated. So Kyrie Irving did not play against the Raptors. So what happened? Nets get blown out. 133 to fucking 97. You couldn't even get over the 100-point mark. In that game, LaMarcus Aldridge, high man with 15 points. Andre Drummond, 16 minutes, 1 for 3 from the field, 6 rebounds, 3 points. This is the guy that some Brooklyn fans, it's going to bang around with Joel Embiid. Nick, what? Huh? Yeah. All right. Sure. Seth Curry, 11 points, 3 for 7 from the field, 2 for 3 from three-point. He's still being reluctant to shoot and try to score, even in Brooklyn. That was the one detractor of Seth Curry. He's not aggressive enough. He doesn't insert himself in the offense. You're playing a game without Kyrie, without Kevin Durant, without Joe Harris down the line. You got to get up more three-pointers than just 3. You got to get up more shots than 7. Doesn't make sense to me, man. You look at what the New York mayor recently said. Now, obviously, he had hinted at changing the vaccine mandate by March 7th. Sounds a little more up in the air these days, as the New York mayor came out, said he's reluctant to show Kyrie special treatment by changing that vaccine mandate. Sends a wrong message to the city. Personal opinion, 100% agree. Can't give him special treatment and then tell the rest of the city, oh, you can't be employed because you're not vaccinated, but you're going to let Kyrie play when you said you wouldn't at first. Yeah, you can't do that. Get vaccinated, dumbass. That's my personal opinion. I'm taking that out. Ignore it. That's my personal opinion. I don't bring that on here when it comes to the vaccine. So Kyrie's still a halftime player. Until further notice, he's still a part-time player. And as you saw last night, that doesn't work out well for Brooklyn. Ben Simmons. Everybody told me he's feeling good in Brooklyn. He's found his home. Still up to the same shit. First, it was not mentally prepared. Now he has some downtime due to back soreness. Meanwhile, Goran Dragic, 35-year-old, just made his first start on Saturday against Milwaukee. 10 years older than Ben Simmons, but he's fine. He hasn't played that much this season either. So you look at the Brooklyn Nets right now, they're 32-30. They're the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. They're 3-7 in their last 10. And they are currently 5 games back from a top 4 seed. So we're not even talking about getting to the 1 seed. That's not going to happen in 20 games. Getting into the top 4 seed, they're 5 games back, which makes it kind of highly unlikely within 20 games that you're going to make up 5 games between the rest of those top 4 seeds in the East. And then you got teams like Boston and Toronto who are above them, who they play Toronto again tonight. Good luck. So I'm looking at Brooklyn. How long can they stay afloat? They need KD back ASAP. They could use Ben Simmons. As much as I hate that dude and think he's fucking a loser, they could use Ben Simmons. And right now, you're going to tell me that they couldn't use James Harden? But we lost the trade, right? Next topic. I want to talk about top 5 duos in the NBA. I'm going to go through this quick, but, I really wanted to talk about this Jason McIntyre guy. I mean, he said some blasphemous things. I mean, some stuff that if I was running Fox Sports Radio, I would take this guy off my radio channel. Like, I would remove him as a show host for some of the things that he put on blast yesterday, Monday. So obviously the dumbest take was like Joel Embiid and James Harden are not a top 5 duo in the Eastern Conference. Come on. 2 top 10 players in the NBA aren't a top 5 duo when they're on the same team in a said conference. That makes zero sense. Even if you think James Harden's a top 15 player, whatever you want to call him. 2 top 15 players, a top 5 player in Joel Embiid, top 3 player, let's be real, maybe the best. With a top 15 player, I say top 10 in James Harden, but that's not a top 5 duo in said conference. That makes zero sense. He also went on to say that Kyle Lowry is better than anything the Sixers have in their backcourt, says he will strap James Harden. Interesting. He says that he would contemplate taking Jamal Murray over James Harden. Interesting. Jamal Murray hasn't played in like 2 years. Interesting. He also goes on to say that, he would love to see Bam Adebayo go head-to-head with Joel Embiid to see who's better in the playoffs. Interesting, because that's not even fucking close. James Harden and Kyle Lowry isn't close. James Harden's better than Jimmy Butler. I know Miami fans don't want to hear that. He's better than Jimmy Butler. Say what you want. Believe what you want. He's better than Jimmy Butler. Joel Embiid is better than Bam Adebayo. James Harden is better than Kyle Lowry. Tyrese Maxey's better than Kyle Lowry. Argue with the wall. I don't care. You'll see. You'll see if we play in the playoffs. You'll see. You'll see who's better out of these matchups. We'll see. I don't know. This guy's fucking nuts. He said Middleton and Giannis is a better duo than Harden and Embiid. Get a fucking grip, dude. Middleton's a solid. He's a good player. Him and Giannis are a good duo. I would say they're top 10 duo in the NBA. Middleton cannot touch James Harden. What are we talking about here? It's sad that I have to come on here and like literally go through the NBA league list, give y'all all the duos, top duos throughout the league, just to emphasize why James Harden and Joel Embiid are a top 5 duo, not only in the Eastern Conference, but in the NBA. So let's get to it. I'm going to go basically in the orders of the records of each conference. I'm going to start with the Eastern Conference, go through the list, give you all the duo for each team. So we got Miami. We got Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. I would assume that those are the 2 best players from the Miami Heat. We got the Chicago Bulls, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. We got Philly, Harden and Embiid, obviously. Milwaukee, Giannis and Middleton. Some would argue Drew Holiday. I get it. Cleveland, I went with Garland and Mobley just because I think that's their young duo core for the future. Some would say Jared Allen. He was the all-star with Garland. I think Mobley is going to be the better player, obviously, there. We get to Boston, Tatum and Brown. Fair. They are a great duo. Toronto was tough because I like Scotty Barnes. I like Gary Trent Jr. They got Fred VanVleet. They got Pascal Siakam. I went with Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, the guys that won the ring there with them, the experienced duo. But there's a couple different avenues you can go there. Brooklyn, Katie and Kyrie, obviously. Atlanta, I went Trae Young. John Collins? Clint Capella. Like, I don't know who's the second best player on Atlanta, but interesting. Charlotte Hornets. I went with LaMelo Ball, obviously, and then Mikal Bridges. You could say Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward. There's a couple options on Charlotte. Washington Wizards, I have Kyle Kuzma and Bradley Beal. New York Knicks, I had RJ Barrett and Julius Randle. Indiana, Malcolm Brogdon, Tyrese Halliburton. Detroit, I got Cade Cunningham. You could go Jeremy Grant, but I'm tempted to go Sadiq Bey there. Orlando, I got Franz Wagner, Cole Anthony. I like a lot of Orlando's young talent there, but those are the two guys I went with. Over in the Western Conference, we obviously got Phoenix, Devin Booker, and CP3. Love that duo. Golden State, you can go with a couple different avenues. Jason McIntyre decided to say that Steph and Klay Thompson better than Harden and Embiid. Yeah, fucking argue that to a wall. I went with Steph and Draymond here. Klay has not been healthy, dude. It's beside the point, though. Steph, Draymond, Steph, Klay, whichever one you want to pick. Memphis, this one was tough. I went with Ja, obviously, but Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Dylan Brooks, who's the second best player there? Who's the guy, who would you pair with Ja to say that that's the duo for Memphis? I don't know. Ja's a hell of a player to be in the duo, though. Utah, we had Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. Dallas, Luka Doncic. I really don't know. It was Kristaps Porzingis who never played. I wrote down Spencer Dinwiddie. You could say Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr. It's hard to say who's the second best player there. Denver, we have Jokic and Murray, Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. if you want to go that route. Minnesota, we have Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards. You also have D'Angelo Russell there, but I chose to go with Ant and Cat. The LA Clippers, PG-13, obviously Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Lakers, LeBron and AD, great duo. New Orleans, Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. You could say CJ McCollum now, but I went with Brandon Ingram. Portland, Damian Lillard, whoever the fuck they have left. It's like I'd probably go with Anthony Simons, but man, that roster's looking dim. San Antonio Spurs, I went with DeJounte Murray and Keldon Johnson. Sacramento Kings, I went De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. OKC, I went with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey. And then Houston, I finished off with Christian Wood and Jalen Green. Now, just wanted to give you those duos. If you need to go back, take the podcast back, a couple minutes, listen to that list again, and think to yourself, who in this list of duos is really better than Harden and Embiid? And so I came up with two. And one of them I'm being super fucking nice on because the guy's been injured the whole time they've been together. I'm going one. I'm gonna get and this one comes with a caveat too. One, I'm going KD and Kyrie. Kyrie's a part-time player. KD's been injured every season since he's been in Brooklyn. Are they really better than Harden and Embiid? I don't know. But I gave it to him. Kawhi and PG. Paul George looked incredible in the playoffs last season. Kawhi is he's a top 5 player when he's healthy. Gave them the benefit of the doubt. Kawhi has been injured all season. Gave them the benefit of the doubt to put them ahead of Embiid and Harden. Sure. That's the only two duos that I have above Harden and Embiid. I have them coming in at number 3 in the NBA. You could say LeBron and AD, I get it. They won a championship together. That was like 2 years ago in the bubble. AD's been injured every season since. Lakers didn't make the playoffs last year. Not looking like a playoff team this year, but I did have Bron and AD at number 4 out of respect. I don't want to go too much recency bias here. Number 5 got interesting just because I love some of the individual players, like the duos, right? Like Golden State, Steph is awesome. He makes that duo. He brings it to the conversation because he's so great. Klay Thompson hasn't been healthy. Draymond's a good piece. He's a good player. I'm not putting him over guys like Harden as like a second fiddle. I'm not putting him over Jaylen Brown. I'm not putting him over Kyrie even. Like, I'm not putting him over those guys. I'm not putting him over AD. Like, that's not happening. Ja Morant, another one. Luka Doncic is another one. But we're talking duos here. We're not talking individual players. Gobert and Mitchell, you can miss me with that. I'm not a Gobert fan at all, obviously. He put Gobert and Mitchell over Embiid and Harden. Give me a fucking break. But beside the point, number 5 was tough. I went with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown because I love both of those players' games. Now, the question comes in on their fit together. I get that. But I still think I think their fit together is blown out of proportion. I think I was a part of that early on in the season. And after I got to watch the Celtics play, people need to research basketball. They need to learn how to watch basketball in general. But nonetheless, I got Tatum and Brown rounding out my top 5. Honorable mention to CP3 and Devin Booker. I really wanted to get them in my top 5. And maybe if CP3 was healthy, I'd probably put him in there. But that's my top 5. Rounding it out, I got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Boston Celtics duo at number 5. Number 4, I got Bron and AD, out of respect to Bron and AD there with the Lakers. Number 3, I got Harden and Embiid. And that's after 2 games. He's talking, Jason McIntyre mentioned that they're 2 one-on-one players. Yeah, sure. Harden's averaged what? Harden's averaged 14 assists per game since he got to Philly. How many points has Joel Embiid averaged since Harden got to Philly? Since Harden's such a ball hog, one-on-one dominant? Joel Embiid's averaging 35.5 points per game in the 2 games that he's played since Harden got to Philly. Come correct. Number 2, I got Kawhi and PG-13. I think that one, if I could go back, I might put Harden and Embiid over them. Kawhi has not played. But I do think when they play, there's a top-tier duo. KD and Kyrie, once again, part-time players right now. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here. Top 5 duos in the NBA. You got it here. I think my list is better than Jason McIntyre's at least. But tell me what you guys think in the comments. Tell me your top 5 duos. I'd love to hear it in the comments there. So definitely let us know. The last thing I wanted to get to before we get out of here, we're hitting that 45-minute mark, which I said I wouldn't do. Spend a lot of time at the beginning house cleaning, though. So I apologize here. We'll make this quick, though. We're going to talk a little bit of Sixers-Knicks preview. Before doing so, I just wanted to mention the Michelle Beadle comments. Yeah, she went on a podcast on ESPN, said Harden will get bored and leave, said something like, why should we think that Harden is anybody but who he's been? Blah, blah, blah. Shut up. So I wanted to talk about this false narrative that Michelle Beadle's talking about. A lot of the national media has been talking about Harden being a quitter, Harden getting bored and quitting on his team. Says, why do we think Harden will change? The notion that Harden is a quitter, I think it's truly false. I honestly think it's 110% false. He spent 9 seasons in Houston. He spent 9 seasons in Houston as a perennial MVP candidate. He gave Daryl Morey so many chances to put a winning team beside him. After MVP performance after MVP performance, he was one CP3 injury from taking down the best team of all time, the Golden State Warriors, who had like 67 wins. He's one CP3 injury away from defeating that team. Before he left Houston last season, played in 8 games, he averaged 24.8 points per game, 10.4 assists per game, 5.1 rebounds per game before being traded to Brooklyn last season, including a 44-point triple-double. Come on, stop it. We can even go back to OKC. James Harden didn't force his way out of OKC. He didn't quit on KD, Serge Ibaka, and Russell Westbrook. They traded him for financial purposes. They couldn't afford him. That was OKC. Come on. He leaves Houston when they're about to take a full-scale rebuild. The only case you can even potentially in a fair way, say that Harden is a quitter is in Brooklyn. It's the only fair narrative as far as Harden being a quitter. And even that one, I don't believe. Can you blame him for wanting out of Brooklyn? Look what's going on right now. That's a dumpster fire. They're falling out of the playoff hunt. They're losing game after game. Kyrie is still a part-time player. KD is still injured. Can you blame him for wanting out of Brooklyn while Joel Embiid is playing like an MVP candidate? Who wouldn't want to fucking play with him other than Ben Simmons? Come on. And not to mention, you talk about the guy quitting on Brooklyn, right? He quit on Brooklyn. He had a fucking hamstring injury. He didn't play the first week he got to Philly. He got a week off with the All-Star break, so he didn't play the first 2 weeks. He didn't play an All-Star game. I just don't get it. I don't get it, guys. I don't get the narratives, how they've changed since Harden got traded to Philly. I think it's complete bullshit. Just wanted to address Michelle Beadle, kind of go through Harden's timeline, because I think there's a bunch of false narratives that are popping up. So let's talk about the actual NBA action. So we got James Harden's first 2 games as a Sixer, 28 points per game, 14 assists per game, as I mentioned earlier, 9 rebounds per game, 57.7% from the field, 57.1%, from the 3-point line, and 94.7% from the free throw line. In his first 2 games, max shot attempts was 14. 14 in the second game against the Knicks, 12 shots in the first game against the Timberwolves. The guy isn't ball hogging. He's averaging 14 assists per game. I mentioned how Embiid's point totals have actually increased. He's scoring a lot easier now that he can't be fucking triple teamed. But not only has Embiid's production increased and improved and become more efficient with James Harden, let's take a look at Tyrese Maxey with the addition of James Harden. And I want to shout out my guy, Sean Barnard, from the Pick Swap podcast. He's on the show quite frequently. I'm on his show quite frequently. He dropped these stats on Twitter today, so I wanted to shout him out for these. Kudos to you, Sean. Love you, brother. Let's look at Maxey without Harden this season. Overall in the season, 35.6 minutes per game, 17.2 points per game, 4.5 assists per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, 40% on 3-point attempts. That's 3.6 attempts per game, 47.7% field goal percentage on 13.5 field goal attempts per game. That's without James Harden. With James Harden, Maxey is averaging 34.5 minutes per game, 24.5 points per game, 2.5 assists per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, I'm sorry. Oh, 3 steals per game. I put that on there. I shouldn't have even read that. That's a little bit of an outlier. Percentages are outliers as well. He's 5 for 8, 3 points over the first 2 games. That's 62.5% from 3. 20 for 30 field goal on field goal percentage. That's 66.7% from the field. That's not going to keep up, obviously. It just because it's easier doesn't mean he's going to shoot some of the best percentages of all time as a guard. But just looking at the point increase, the efficiency, right? The efficiency uptick. He's playing less minutes. I know it's only a minute or so. Still less minutes. He's doing more in less time. So obviously, Harden has heavily benefited Tyrese Maxey. And it does look like they've made sort of a coaching change as far as a philosophy that Tyrese Maxey is getting more shots than Tobias Harris. I don't know if that's James Harden and the way he plays, the way it kind of irons out as far as a fit with this team, or if that's just the coaching staff saying, hey, we're going to go to Embiid, we're going to go to Harden, then we're going to go to Maxey, then we'll go to Tobias Harris as that 4th option. I don't know if that's how it's playing out. It's how it seemed in the first 2 matchups with Tobias. he's obviously not shooting the ball great, but he's not getting a ton of shots. He's not getting into his areas of comfort, which is mid-range post up. So kind of seems like they're gravitating more towards Tyrese Maxey as a third option. We'll see how it plays out. Just to get into a little bit of this Sixers-Knicks matchup. Obviously, the Sixers are hosting the Knicks Wednesday night at Wells Fargo Center. Harden's debut at home. I mean, I cannot wait. I won't be there, but I will definitely, obviously, be watching on TV. And I cannot fucking wait to see what that environment is like. Me and Dylan Davis, also from DSM, we are heading to the Denver Nuggets matchup on March 14th. So if you guys want to link up, let us know. Meet us out there. We'll be in the 100 sections. Want to see the best big man matchup of the season. Jokic versus Embiid. That's going to be incredible. But looking at this Knicks matchup, obviously the last meeting Sunday afternoon, the Sixers took that one 125-109 in New York. So that was at Madison Square Garden. The Knicks are actually winning this season series, believe it or not. They're 2-1 up on the Sixers on the season series. This will be the fourth and final meeting between these two teams. As I mentioned, this is Harden's home debut in Philly, so you know it's going to be rocking. In that last game, Harden, 29 points, 16 assists, 10 rebounds, 8 for 14 from the field, 3 for 7 from the three. Embiid, 37 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 for 18 from the field. A career high, 23 for 27 from the free throw line, which we'll talk about that just briefly before we end the show here, because that's fucking ridiculous, the conversation that's around free throws right now. Tyrese Maxey, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 8 for 14 from the field, 3 for 5 from the three. RJ Barrett, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Evan Fournier, 24 points, 6 for 11 from the three-point line. And I mentioned, James Harden. I mentioned Joel Embiid's free throw attempts there, 23 for 27 from the free throw line, which is a career high in makes for Joel Embiid on Sunday. James Harden was also 10 for 10 from the free throw line, which would make for 33 for 37 from the free throw line between those two players, close to 40 attempts there from the free throw line. What I want to say to opposing NBA fan bases, fuck off. If you're sitting here counting Joel Embiid's free throw attempts, good for you. You're wasting your fucking time if you think that Sixers fans give a shit. We do not care. We'll count them for you. We don't care. Free throws are part of the game. The only reason you're upset is because Joel Embiid makes them. You've seen over the years, you've seen Shaq, and shout out to my guy Kata Hot from DSM Media. Put the TikTok out earlier. Go check Shaq's free throw attempts during the prime of his career. Y'all didn't say nothing because he didn't make them. Go look at Wilt Chamberlain's free throw attempts during the prime of his career. Y'all didn't say nothing because you weren't alive, but just to give you a little history, go look up Wilt Chamberlain's stat lines. Look at his free throw attempts during the prime of his career. The only reason y'all bring this up is because Joel Embiid makes them. My biggest case against for what I'm saying here, Ben Simmons was getting hack-a-bend all playoffs last postseason. Nobody said shit because he missed them, because he shot 33% from the free throw line. Everybody loved it. They had a laugh. Nobody says anything about Giannis and his free throw attempts. We all just laugh when everybody's counting at the free throw line every time he attempts one. Why? Because he's not a good free throw shooter. So it's okay if you shoot a lot of free throws if you're not a good free throw shooter. But if you're James Harden, who shoots 10 for 10 in a said game, if you're Joel Embiid, who shoots 23 for 27 as a center, you get criticized because you make your free throws. You take your free points. God forbid. It's weird. You guys need to stop. The hate against the Sixers, it needs to stop because you're going to have to get used to us. You're going to see a long playoff stretch from this roster. Get used to it. You don't like it, don't watch. Simple as that. Simply put, yes, I got the Sixers winning this matchup. I think, as far as what we're looking for, I don't think you're looking for key things. Hush, boy. You hear my dog about to bark up in here. You're looking for key things such as, the involvement of Tobias Harris. You want to see him be a little bit more involved on the offensive end. He's had some tough assignments on defense. So I'm hoping, he can get it going on the offensive end, keep him involved, keep him engaged. Stop interrupting me during the pod, man. You're supposed to be a coworker. Stop. I'm about to be done. Give me 5 minutes, dude. Rocket's supposed to be the co-host and co-worker here today, and he's sitting here interrupting me while I'm talking, man. Shout out to Rocket, the Philly pup. But get used to the Sixers, man. They're going to be around a lot in the postseason. A lot of talk. And Jason McIntyre is going to have to go back and fix his duos. You say some bozos in Philadelphia are saying that Harden and Embiid are the next Shaq and Kobe. Let's talk at the end of the season, bro. I'd punch that dude in the mouth if I met him. Honestly, he's so fucking annoying at hearing him talk and just a blasphemy that comes out your mouth. You got to be some type of ignorant to say some of the things that he said, man. But looking at the Sixers' next 5, this week, not so bad. You got 2 home games against the Knicks and the Cavs. So Wednesday, you got the Knicks at home. Then Friday, you got the Cavs at home. Saturday, it gets real. You get the Heat. You have to go on the road, play them in Miami. Cannot wait for that matchup because that's going to be a telling matchup. Right now, people are discrediting the Sixers for, beating up on the Timberwolves, which I get that one. They're the 7th seed in the Western Conference. Is it fair to discredit that win? I don't think so. We lost to the Timberwolves early on in the season. I consider it a good win. New York Knicks, they've lost 6 in a row. So you take those wins with a grain of salt. I get that. And we get the Knicks again, hopefully give them their 7th loss in a row, continue the downward trajectory for them. But nonetheless, I think the Sixers take this game. As far as their next 5-game stretch, you got the Knicks, Cavs at home. You got the Heat away on Saturday. Then Monday, you got the Bulls at home, which we've had no issues with the Bulls. They're 3-0 against the Bulls this season. Then we got the Nets at home on Thursday. That's a big matchup everybody's waiting for. We'll see if KD's available. Kyrie will be available. It's an away game. It's home in Philly, so he should be able to play. And then, obviously, it doesn't seem like Ben Simmons is going to play. Let's be real. Back soreness, mental health concerns. He's not playing in Philly. He might not play until the playoffs. So next 5 games, we're looking at some big matchups on the tail end of it. Really, really important 3-game I would even say 4-game stretch there. Cavs, Heat, Bulls, Nets. Those are all playoff teams, all Eastern Conference contenders. So I'm hoping for. I'm trying to think of the record I want in those 5 games. Knicks, that's a W. Cavs is interesting, but it's home. It's a Friday night. I think it's going to be kind of lit. That's a W. Miami's going to be tough. It's hard for me to say what that will be. I'm going to go W. Away at Miami. And then I do think we lose the game on Monday against the Bulls at home. The reason I say that is just because we're due for a loss to the Bulls. It's really hard to sweep a quality opponent like the Chicago Bulls this season. Sixers are 3-0 against the Bulls. They got to drop one of them to them, right? So I'll give them that one loss. They're going to dog the shit out of Brooklyn and Philly on Thursday. Not a doubt in my mind. Harden is going to be so hungry to destroy them, destroy Kyrie Irving. Embiid's going to be so hungry to destroy Brooklyn, destroy KD after all that shit he talked on our court. Man, that is going to be the matchup of the fucking century. I think the Nets are up on that series 2-1, so we definitely need to get that W, split the series on the season. I don't see any reason why not. But, man, it's getting interesting down the stretch here of the NBA season. As I mentioned, I will be more broadly covering the NBA scope as we progress through the season. In these solo episodes, you will not see this hour-long montage anymore, I promise you. We will stick to the 30 to 40-minute segments just because it's a lot of me talking, but we had a lot of house cleaning to do at the beginning of the show today, and I had a lot I wanted to get to. But everybody listening out there, thank you so much for tuning in today. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribing to DSM Media on all your favorite podcast streaming networks, as well as YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube. That's the most important spot. We just eclipsed 500 subscribers. The next goal is 1K. Help us get there. Make sure you're following DSM Media at DSM_media on Twitter, at DSM Media on TikTok, and at DSM.DoSomethingMajor on Instagram. On Facebook, if you just search DSM Media, look for our logo, you'll find us. Make sure you follow us on Facebook. We're bringing content across all the social media platforms daily. And then for myself, make sure you're following me at Scotty Drowned across the board on social media platforms. For myself, for DSM Media, thank you all for tuning in today. And go Sixers!
Have a timeout. Decide not to use it.